Hello everybody, and welcome to this lecture on nervous tissue. Alright, so here we go. Hopefully some of you guys remember from chapter 1 that it is the nervous system and the endocrine system which are most responsible for maintaining homeostasis in the body. The difference is the nervous system is much more rapid than the endocrine system. The nervous system is kind of like sending a text message. As soon as you hit send, boom, your friend has it. Where the endocrine system is kind of like sending something through the mail in an envelope. It takes a while to get there. That's because the endocrine system releases hormones into the blood, and it takes a while for that blood to reach that target organ. Where the nervous system sends it through neurons, and it gets there pretty much instantaneously, less than a second. If you want to be a doctor that studies the nervous system, you will be a neurologist, because neurology is the study of neurons and the nervous system. All right, a little gross anatomy and terminology. The first one is, I think you guys have heard of this one, it's called the brain. We're going to go over that in detail, so I'm really not going to go over that very much. Cranial nerves. There's 12 of them. They come out of directly from the brain, so they do not branch out of the spinal cord. Will you have to know all 12, like trigeminal and hypoglossal and glossopharyngeal and vagus and no, you won't have to know all those. But yes, know that those are nerves that branch directly off of the brain. What is a nerve? Well, a nerve is a bundle or a bunch of neurons put together, including some connective tissue and also some blood vessels. I know you probably know what a neuron is, but we're going to go over that next time. Spinal nerves. These are the nerves that do not branch off directly from your brain, but they branch off from the spinal cord, hence their name. There are 31 pairs of them, which branch off from the spinal cord. Ganglia. Now that might be a new term. Those are small clusters of cell bodies of neurons outside of the brain and spinal cord, so outside of the central nervous system. Now the cell body is a part of the neuron which contains the nucleus of the cell, so it's not the dendrites or it's not the axon. Once again, we'll go over that next time. And I think you guys know about sensory receptors. If you remember from the last unit in the tegumentary system, the Pacinian corpuscles, which sense deep pressure. These are things, part of the neuron, that monitor changes in the internal or external environment. So it can make you feel heat, it can make you feel touch, and these things can also are inside of your body. They can notice when there's changes inside of your body as well. 3 basic functions of the nervous system. Number 1, they sense things, a sensory function. They sense when there's changes inside your body or outside the body. Those also are going to be called sensory neurons that do that. You're going to see that in a couple slides later. Integrative functions. This is the brain. So whatever you feel or whatever you sense, the brain interprets that information. And of course, the brain can also analyze, and it stores information. And the last function of the nervous system is the motor function. And that's the response. Whatever your brain decides to do, it sends that signal through a motor function, through motor neurons, and that message will go to either a muscle or a gland in response to whatever stimulus. Divisions of the nervous system. There's going to be quite a few divisions, and these are going to be the first 2. CNS, or the central nervous system. Very, very simple. It's made up of the brain and the spinal cord. That's what makes up the CNS, or central nervous system. Then you have the PNS, or the peripheral nervous system, and that's all the nervous tissue, neurons outside of the brain and spinal cord. So all the nerves that break off from your brain and the spinal cord, that run down the rest of your body. That's going to make up the peripheral nervous system. Just the brain and spinal cord makes up the central nervous system. And now we're going to break down the nervous system a little bit more. First, we got what's called the somatic nervous system. This is the part of the nervous system which is voluntary. It's under your conscious control. So right now, as my brain is telling my mouth to talk and my hand to write, that is the somatic nervous system. It's totally under my control. I can stop talking whenever I want, and I can stop writing whenever I want. Another one is called the autonomic nervous system, and that's involuntary. These are things that happen all by themselves without you having to think about it. So this would be things like cardiac muscle. Your heart is beating, but you don't have to think about it. It's going to beat all by itself. Also, when food moves through your digestive system, smooth muscles contract and relax. You don't have to think about it because it does it all by itself. And that's what makes it autonomic, because it's involuntary. These are things that happen without you thinking about it. And let's go ahead and break down the autonomic system a little bit. Now, branching off the autonomic nervous system into its two parts, you have the sympathetic division, or the sympathetic nervous system. That would be like if you walked into class and Miss O'Donohoe or me said, "All right, guys, we have a major exam today." Boom. What would happen? Heart rate speeds up. Sweating would increase. Breathing would increase. This is what happens. It prepares you for what's called fight or flight. Now, these reactions occur automatically. You do not have to think of them. And it's in times of stress. So it's your body's way of getting ready to either run away from something or to have to fight. Now, obviously, if you have a test, you don't have to fight the test, but you do feel nervous, and that's because of your sympathetic nervous system. Now, the opposite of that is the parasympathetic nervous system. I like this one better. This one slows you down, slows down the heart rate. They call it rest and digest. It's basically the opposite of the sympathetic nervous system. It slows the breathing and heart rate. It lowers the blood pressure. It also innervates, which means it connects to the gut, and that's where it's kind of related to digestion. And one more little division is called the enteric nervous system. It's kind of like its own little nervous system. It's that deals with digestion. So it controls the GI, or gastrointestinal tract. That's basically the channel that food travels through as it goes through your body. Now, what's crazy is it actually acts independently from the autonomic or the central nervous system. So basically, your digestive organs know what to do even if they become disconnected from your brain. They still know how to digest your food. So it's like its own little nervous system that's outside of the central nervous system. A little diagram that shows you where the information or the impulses from the different nervous systems go to. So the SNS, or somatic nervous system, remember that's voluntary, and that's going to innervate or connect with skeletal muscle. Those are the muscles that are under your voluntary control. So while you're taking your notes right now, you're writing, that's skeletal muscle that's doing it. The autonomic nervous system, remember that's involuntary. These are things you do not have to think about. Two divisions, sympathetic and parasympathetic. And that's going to innervate smooth muscle, like in your stomach or your digestive tract. Cardiac muscle, like in your heart. Heart beats all by itself. Also glands, which release hormones. And adipose, or fat tissue. Then the enteric nervous system, also involuntary. You don't have to tell your stomach, "Hey, start digesting that food, please." It does it all by itself. So that also innervates or connects with smooth muscle, glands, and endocrine cells of the gastrointestinal or GI tract. All right, so neurons. the special cells of the nervous system. And one way that they are classified are some neurons are considered sensory or afferent neurons. And basically, these are the neurons that are bringing information into the central nervous system. So these are bringing information to your spinal cord and then to your brain. So if a spider crawls on your skin, sensory neurons are going to send that information that there's a spider on you to your spinal cord and then to your brain. I'm going to skip down to the next one. The sensory neurons are going to send it to interneurons. And that is basically your brain. So if there's a spider on you, the sensory neurons are going to send that information to the interneurons in your brain. The interneurons are going to be like, hey, what is that? Oh, that's a spider. Well, then your brain's going to be like, I don't want the spider on me, and it's going to send that information through motor or efferent neurons, and it's going to cause your arm to knock the spider away. Now for me, the way I remember the difference between afferent and efferent neurons are sending signals that exit. They exit the brain. They're leaving the brain. Exit starts with an E. Efferent, hey, it also starts with an E. That's how I personally remember the difference between afferent and efferent neurons. Some major structures of the nervous system, of course, remember the CNS or the central nervous system is made up of your brain, and then the spinal cord. Remember the spinal nerves, the 31 pairs, those what branch off of the spinal cord. Remember there are also the cranial nerves, which branch directly off the brain, 12 of those. I know you can't see it, but remember a ganglia or a ganglion, that is a cluster of cell bodies. That's the part of a neuron which contains the nucleus. But it's a cluster of cell bodies which are located outside of the CNS, so not in the brain or spinal cord. And you have your peripheral nerves. Those are what do branch off of the spinal cord. You have sensory receptors like these in the skin, like, hey, that looks like a Pacinian corpuscle, that looks like a Ruffini ending, that looks like a Meissner's corpuscle. Hey, there's a sebaceous gland. The enteric plexus in the small intestines, basically, that's what controls your enteric nervous system, which moves food throughout your digestive tract and helps you break down the food that you eat. And your last slide, cells of the nervous system. Obviously, the most important, I guess in my opinion, the neurons. The main cells of the nervous system are neurons. The next set of notes is going to be totally devoted to the parts of the neuron, different types of neurons, what they do, etc. And then neurons have their little helpers. And these are 4 of the little helpers. These are probably going to be some of the more difficult things to remember in this unit. Astrocytes. We're going to go over all of these, but write them down for now. But we're going to go over their job later on in the next unit or the next session. Astrocytes, Schwann cells, oligodendrocytes, and microglia. So right now, all you got to know, the neuroglia, all these 4 different types of cells, these are the helpers. These are the ones that surround neurons and do different things for the neuron. All right, thank you very much for listening, and I'll talk to you next time.